I don't feel anything anymore. Hi, welcome to a video where I did something very dumb that took far too long. Now I love Hollow Knight, but would I do anything for it? Yeah, of course, that's why this video exists. So for this video, I went ahead and beat every single Hollow Knight boss on Radiant. And in doing so, I nearly drove myself to insanity. Yeah, it's that difficult.
So if you've never played Hollow Knight, you're probably very confused right now. Well, in Hollow Knight, there's an area called the Hall of Gods. In this area, you can refight every single boss in the game, given you fought them in the main game already. In the Hall of Gods, each boss fight has 3 difficulties: Attuned, Ascended, and Radiant. Attuned is closest to the original fight, with the arena generally being the same and bosses dealing their normal damage, however they usually have more health than in the original fight. Ascended changes things up. The arena may be different, like how in its regular and attuned fight, Nosk has an elevated section of land in the middle of the arena, but not on Ascended. Also, bosses deal double their normal damage and have even more health. In Radiant, the Ascended arena changes are kept, but the bosses now one-shot you. If you get hit even once, you have to redo the fight all over again. Luckily, if you're trying to 112% Hollow Knight, the Hall of Gods is a completely unnecessary area. You don't even need to do anything there for an achievement.
But I fought every boss on Radiant. Twice. I'm serious.
Okay, so 2 years ago I had the brilliant idea of beating every boss on Radiant, and I did so, but at that time I wasn't doing anything on YouTube, so I couldn't record it and then brag about what I did. But now, I do YouTube, so I can brag about what I did to my 31 subscribers after beating every boss on Radiant a second time. For this video, I will be talking about every boss individually. Some bosses will be more in-depth than others, obviously, and oh yeah, I'll just quickly prove it real fast. Alright, so I'm going to prove that I beat all of the Hollow Knight bosses on Radiant real fast. So here's my file. And there you go. I'll put the controller in. Dang it. I'll put the controller in, look. See? Alright, now I'll do the other file real fast. Just to show that I've done it twice. Luckily for me, I have a Dream Gate set up in the near God Seeker. There she is. I'm playing this one-handed. Ooh. No. And let's get the controller in the shot again. Well, I just accidentally pressed the Z button. There you go. Okay, now that I've proven myself, I want to quickly talk about some charms. Okay, so first I'll go over my charm setups. For the most part, I use the following charms: Long Nail, Mark of Pride, Grim Child, Nailmaster's Glory, Fragile Strength, and near the end I remove Nailmaster's Glory and overcharmed with Shaman Stone. Overcharming can be very useful when fighting bosses on Radiant, because if you don't know, overcharming causes you to take double damage, but it doesn't matter on Radiant, since you'll die instantly anyway. Here's a quick list of bad charms when fighting bosses on Radiant. Wayward Compass. While it is one of the best charms in the main game, Wayward Compass is useless here, and you have no reason to use the map. Heck, you don't even get a map of Godhome. Gathering Swarm is only used for gathering Xero without having to go pick it up. As there is no Xero in Godhome, this is a completely useless charm. Stalwart Shell. For the most part, this charm is useless, as it just increases invincibility frames after getting hit, but you won't be getting any invincibility frames in most circumstances. The only time you can get iframes in Radiant is if you have Carefree Melody instead of Grimchild. Stalwart Shell does work with Carefree Melody, and that just makes it more useful than it already is. Grub Song. Grub Song only activates when you take damage, so it has no use. Although if you equip Weaver Song when your Weaver is attacked, they will give you soul when you have Grub Song equipped, so it has some use there. I would only recommend this if you're going for a familiar setup. Fragile/Unbreakable Heart. You die in one hit, so there is no use for these. And then Fragile and Unbreakable Greed, there's no Xero in Godhome. Fury of the Fallen. This only activates when you have one mask left, so using it is pointless. Thorns of Agony. Only activates when you take damage, though it can activate with Carefree Melody. Balder Shell. Only activates when using focus, and while I do admit it could probably help you avoid damage, I would rather attempt to dodge and attack than have to start focusing when focusing is pointless on Radiant. I'd rather use my soul on other spells. Although it does stack with Stalwart Shell, but I'd recommend Carefree Melody for use with Stalwart Shell. Though I guess if you don't have Carefree Melody, Balder Shell could be a good alternative. You see, sometimes I just don't think things through when I write my scripts. But yeah. Moving on to the next charm, Quick and Deep Focus. These are only used for healing, which is pointless on Radiant. Lifeblood charms. It doesn't matter if you have these. While they may add on to your health with Lifeblood or even turn all of your masks into Lifeblood masks, you die in one hit anyway, so I do not recommend these. Hive Blood. Hive Blood only activates when you take damage. In fact, I think I should have started this entire section out by saying any charm that activates when you take damage is not good. But Hive Blood is probably the worst offender of all of them, since Hive Blood only activates if you lose health, while Thorns of Agony can activate just by getting hit, so Hive Blood is useless even with Carefree Melody. Spore Shroom. It only activates when focusing, and the spores don't do nearly enough damage and don't stick around long enough to warrant risking getting hit in Radiant fights, especially since most bosses are moving all over the place most of the time, so they might not even get trapped in the spores. Shape of Un. Yet another charm that only activates when focusing. I would rather dodge than be a slug. So yeah, every other charm I believe someone could find uses out of, so I just really wanted to say which charms are bad and why they're bad. Now that that's over with, let's get on with the bosses, starting with... Radiant Gruz Mother is honestly a fairly difficult boss compared to regular Gruz Mother. The added spike pits in her arena make traversing it more difficult than it needs to be, although my first death here was a stupid mistake as I just knocked myself into the spikes. When you're fighting Radiant bosses, especially ones with spikes in the arena, you really gotta be careful with knockback, because you can very easily just knock yourself right into spikes. The main strategy here is to just pay attention. That's what you should do with most bosses. Also, don't try approaching Gruz Mother when she gets stuck up here or anywhere, because she may just launch herself at you and you will die. Overall, I died twice on Gruz Mother. Oh yeah, I counted my deaths, so you get to see how much I suffered. Radiant Vengefly King is strange, as there's 2 Vengefly Kings instead of 1, but that doesn't make it difficult. My tip for this one is don't jump out at the Vengefly Kings. They may just fly off and out of range, and you could fall into the pit below, and that's not a good thing, because you are dead then. My only death on this was caused by a bad jump where I accidentally landed on a Vengefly King mid-dive attack. You should definitely take out the summoned Vengeflies ASAP, because they might get in the way, although they're just Vengeflies, so maybe not. This fight isn't that hard though. As I said, I only died once. I find Brooding Mawlek's arena on Ascended and Radiant to be easier than its arena on Attuned. It's completely flat on Ascended and Radiant, which makes it feel more manageable and less stressful to me. My best advice for this boss is to look out for the claw attack. It's got a shockingly long range, and in previous playthroughs of Hollow Knight, I've always gotten hit by it. Also, only bounce on it after it does its volley spit attack, because you might just get hit by its random spits of infection. Unfortunately, I forgot to record my first death on this boss, and my second death is laughable. This is a fight where I highly recommend the use of nail arts, especially Great and Cyclone Slash. Don't worry, Dash Slash, you'll get your time. Nail arts take out the Brooding Mawlek quickly, and you can use them while out of range of the claw. Total death count was 2. False Knight is easy. I didn't die at all. I'm not even going to give you tips for this fight because it's so easy. It's literally like the first major boss in the game, and Gruz Mother was harder than it. Although the other one. Failed Champion is significantly harder than False Knight. He's faster, his shockwaves are bigger, his rocks just fall wherever they want, he's the thickest boss in the game. Pro tip, just after he staggers, use Cyclone Slash before he throws his temper tantrum. That makes it so that after his tantrum, you can stagger him again quickly. Also, make heavy use of the Shadow Dash. Failed Champion speed will require you to dash out of the way of some attacks, specifically his jumps. Although be careful about dashing, as most of my deaths come from poorly timed dashes. I died 6 times to Failed Champion, which is the record right now, but trust me, that record was made to be broken. I just called Failed Champion the thickest boss in the game, when in reality, he's just a maggot in a big suit of armor. So I'm wrong. Oops. For first-time players, Hornet is probably the first big hurdle you'll encounter in Hollow Knight. She's much faster than False Knight, Gruz Mother, and Vengefly King before her, and she has some attacks that you wouldn't expect. Although for someone like myself, Hollow Knight Pro, the first Hornet fight is very easy because she's a slow boss to me. She very obviously telegraphs what she's about to do, and the only thing I have to say is that when she does that Silk Burst attack, use Shade Soul on her to deal some extra damage. I didn't die at all to her. Hornet's second fight is, surprise, harder than the first. She's much faster and also has a new counter and spike ball attack. For that, I recommend immediately dashing in the opposite direction if you trigger her counter, or hitting the spike balls when she uses those. Other than that, she's just a faster Hornet, so everything I said about Hornet Protector applies. Just do it faster. Most of my deaths came from poorly timed jumps or dashes. In total, I died 4 times to Hornet Sentinel. Oh really? Massive Moss Charger? This thing's easy, bring it on. Okay, so you didn't see that, and I'm gonna first try Massive Moss Charger right now, let's do it. What? Why? Why? No. I'm at the lowest point in my career. The fact that I died twice to the literal Moss Boss is sad. Massive Moss Charger can just be defeated by swinging your nail at it when it charges and not stopping until it dies. In fact, the reason I died twice was because I poorly timed a nail swing. You know what's real good for this fight, but I didn't use? The Steady Body Charm. It makes it so that you don't get knocked back when you hit an enemy. So that, combined with Quick Slash, can just shred Massive Moss Charger. Actually, no. The best way to shred Massive Moss Charger is with a paper shredder. Oh, we've come to the alluring god of motherhood. Gross. Flukemarm on Radiant is fairly difficult. The Fluke phase that she summons don't die in one hit to a pure nail, even with fragile strength. So while bouncing on her head may be effective, it can also lead to death by the Fluke phase, causing you to move so that you miss a swing and accidentally touch one of them or Flukemarm. What I recommend is striking her or her Fluke phase until you get a ton of soul, and then spamming Abyss Shriek under her. It kills the Fluke phase but basically before they're even born, and deals tons of damage to Flukemarm. And I only died 3 times trying to figure out my strategy. Similar to Hornet, the Mantis Lords may be another hurdle a first-time player would face in a playthrough of Hollow Knight, but I think they're easy. The Mantis Lords, like Hornet, telegraph their attacks and aren't that quick about it. While the second phase may stress you out, you have the Shadow Dash, so just dash through a Lord if you need to. I didn't die at all to these Lords. In fact, they're not even Lords. I don't know where I'm going with this bit, so let's just move on. The Sisters of Battle, on the other hand, also aren't that hard. Yeah, the second phase is just the 3 Lords attacking at once, and while this doesn't mean you need to be a bit more careful, again, the Shadow Dash is very helpful here. Just pay attention and you won't be overwhelmed. I only died once to the Sisters of Battle. Oh no. It's the Oblobbles. Normally, you'd probably fight the Oblobbles by brute forcing them, but you can't do that here. Because of the Oblobbles' erratic patterns and randomness, they are incredibly difficult on Radiant. However, I learned something when fighting them on Radiant. I learned to take it slow. Pay attention to where the infection blobs are going and keep your distance during that attack. Strike when the Oblobbles are in the sky, since that lowers the risk of them hitting you if you hit them while they're close to the ground. And finally, Abyss Shriek is your best friend. Abyss Shriek can shred the Oblobbles if used multiple times in succession, but only use it when they're higher up in the arena, as one of my deaths was because using Abyss Shriek knocked it down to me and hit me. The real problem arises when you kill one of the Oblobbles. The other one will drastically speed up and shoot far faster. Here you also have to be faster to avoid the shots. These jerks caused the most deaths so far, with me dying 11 times. They're like lovers or whatever, but I don't lover them, I hater them. That was a terrible joke, but these are a frustrating boss, and I'm mad, I'm done, moving on. Now after the nightmare that was the Oblobbles, I was excited to face a boss I considered easy, Hive Knight. I didn't get the easy boss that I was expecting, considering I died 9 times. Hive Knight is quick. His lunge attack especially can be difficult to avoid because of how fast it is. But what got me was the spike ball attack and the Hiveling's attack. Either I'd get distracted trying to avoid those attacks or just get hit by them. On their own, they aren't difficult attacks to avoid, but with Hive Knight attacking while they're still going on, they're kind of a nightmare. My only tip is, yet again, pay attention, because Barry B. Benson here also has obvious telegraphs. Okay, well, here's that easy boss I wanted. Broken Vessel is a fairly easy boss after fighting him, like, once. Some of its attacks take a few seconds to charge up, which makes them incredibly easy to avoid. There are some attacks that could catch you off guard, like its slam attack and its headbang attack, but I can usually take it out before it even does the headbang. The only thing that could cause problems, in my opinion, is its jumps and the fact that they're sorta random. I don't really have much else to say, since I didn't die at all to Broken Vessel. Similar to Failed Champion, Lostkin is much more difficult than its original counterpart. As usual, it's faster and gives you less time to react to its attacks. But since Broken Vessel is overall a more difficult boss than False Knight, Lostkin is much more difficult than Failed Champion. The weird thing about Lostkin is that it loses its headbang attack that it has as Broken Vessel. The real issue here is the infected balloons that spawn. In the Broken Vessel fight, they spawn for about a quick second and then despawn. In the Lostkin fight, they're around much longer and spawn more frequently, and are more of a nuisance because of that. They can easily distract you from Lostkin, which can cause them to get a cheap shot off of you, and, you know, that kind of kills you. So, most of my deaths actually come from poorly timed jumps, where I would jump too early or late, and get hit during a dash attack. Also, the range of the dash attack is kind of absurd and hits in a pretty wide area. I died 9 times to Lostkin. Like Brooding Mawlek, I find Nosk's arena in Ascended and Radiant to be easier than its normal arena. Nosk just automatically rising when it has the elevated floor can lead to some cheap hits, but that doesn't happen in Radiant. You can just bounce on Nosk when it rushes you without having to worry about its hitbox suddenly rising. And I know people like to do the thing where you just hide near the corner of the platform, but honestly, I've never been able to do that because I always just get hit. Just don't constantly bounce on Nosk, because that can lead to you getting hit during a jump. My deaths come from a poorly timed dash and a late jump. I don't find Nosk all that difficult. As I said, I only died twice. Winged Nosk is much more difficult than Nosk, but still doable. The first thing I'll say about Winged Nosk is something that's probably been said a million times before. The horrible hitbox on it. Usually when you fight a boss in a 2D platformer like Hollow Knight, a boss with wings doesn't have a hitbox on their wings. Winged Nosk says, screw that, and has a hitbox on its wings anyway. This can make vaulting over Winged Nosk difficult as you may get hit by the freaking wings. However, I didn't actually die because of Winged Nosk's crummy hitbox. 2 of my 4 deaths were because of poorly timed Descending Darks. In fact, if you noticed, I've attributed a lot of my deaths to poorly timing actions. Descending Dark can be very helpful for dealing with Winged Nosk, you just need to time it right. If not, you'll either get hit by Nosk itself or an infected balloon that Nosk summoned 5 seconds ago, but didn't spawn in until just now. Here's where I start a bit of an easy streak. The Collector is a boss I highly recommend Fragile Strength for. The enemies he can spawn on Radiant are annoying because he can spawn Primal Aspids, aka Satan spawn. However, these enemies have decreased health, so with Pure Nail or even Coiled Nail and Fragile Strength, you can one-shot them. The Collector is also predictable, so you can kill the enemies he spawns the moment they spawn if you're fast enough. My only death to the Collector was because I accidentally walked into an armored balder he spawned instead of killing it. In my defense, I'm pretty sure I hit the button that swings the nail. That button, yeah, you know that one. But I just must have pressed it too late. I was prepared to die multiple times to God Tamer, but I didn't die at all. My strategy for God Tamer is to pogo off the beast and then move out of the way when it starts rolling. I actually kind of recommend cornering yourself for this fight, as you can just climb to the wall when the beast flies at you after rolling, and the Tamer doesn't swing her lance until she gets close to the ground. If you're having that much trouble with the Tamer, you could defeat her, but killing the beast automatically defeats the Tamer, so I just do that. This is the same boss twice on Radiant, so I'm grouping them together, considering they are literally the same creature. Enraged Guardian might be faster than Crystal, but I'm not really that sure. Usually the only difference seems to be that Enraged Guardian deals double damage, but that doesn't really matter since you die instantly anyway. This boss is defeated by hitting it until it dies, as most bosses are, and looking where the lasers are going. That is it. I don't have much else to say. I didn't die at all to either of them. This boss is kind of stupid. Oh boy, another very tough boss. I hope I don't go crazy trying to beat it. Outside of Godhome, I like the Uumuu fight. Inside of Godhome, Uumuu can go die in a hole. Since Quirrell is dead, he can't help you here. Instead, Uumuu will summon Umas that you have to hit and direct the explosive core to hit Uumuu. The problem is, directing the cores can be very difficult, as they may just loop around and hit you, and while you try to hit the Umas, Uumuu will begin attacking, which can catch you off guard and cause you to get hit. As a little challenge, I fought Uumuu with Grimchild equipped, because usually, Grimchild causes tons of problems when Umas are involved, specifically when you traverse through Fog Canyon. But he didn't do anything problematic. In fact, he helped a lot, dealing damage to Uumuu with me, helping take it out faster. The problem was Uumuu itself, and the fact that falling all the way down is now a damage barrier instead of acid, so that just kills you. I died 15 times to this stupid jellyfish. In fact, why is the jellyfish even in a game about bugs? This doesn't make sense. I'm unsubscribing from you, Team Cherry. And now for a change in mood. From one of the hardest bosses on Radiant to one of the easiest. Traitor Lord is hard for the first time you fight him, and then after that you realize that he's one of the most simple bosses in the game. Close combat is the name of the game. Getting too far away will cause Traitor Lord to throw 2 projectiles at you, which I have always had trouble dodging, and the easiest thing to do is to just jump over all of his attacks, and when he starts punching the ground with the shockwave attack, dash through the shockwave and then jump on him. I beat Traitor Lord with no deaths. Like God Tamer, I was expecting to die a few times to the invincible, fearless, sensual, mysterious, enchanting, vigorous, diligent, overwhelming, gorgeous, passionate, terrifying, beautiful, powerful Grey Prince Zote, but I only died once. Grey Prince Zote is one of the most frustrating bosses in the game because of how unpredictable he is. You think he's just going to jump and slam down, but he'll do something he should be able to do and spin towards you in midair. You know, I've decided that I hate Hollow Knight. It's far too unrealistic. Anyway, I only died because I accidentally cornered myself and timed to dash poorly. I realize that Grey Prince Zote actually does telegraph his attacks, but he does it so quickly that he's difficult to read sometimes. My only tip is good luck. He's usually not easy. I died 3 times to this glorified enemy. 2 of my 3 deaths were because of the follies spawning at bad times and causing me to hit them. Soul Warrior is not hard, and I really don't have much to say about him. He telegraphs all of his attacks and is slow to perform them. He's not hard. I just got super unlucky. And glorified enemy is a really good way to describe it, as I just said, because this thing is just an enemy with a few extra attacks. Case closed, I'm done. It's embarrassing that I died less times to Soul Master than I did Soul Warrior. My only death, yes, 1 death to Soul Master, was when I got too cocky attempting to attack him when he was doing his orb summoning during his 2nd phase. Soul Master is fairly easy though. He's yet another boss where my only tip is to pay attention. His fight is long, so losing multiple times to him may discourage you, but don't give up. Try fighting him on lower difficulties and getting his attacks down. Same goes for every other boss, minus a few certain bosses. Mainly any boss who's just completely unpredictable. That's just luck. I didn't die at all to Soul Tyrant, so it's even more embarrassing that I died 3 times to Soul Warrior. Everything I said about Soul Master applies, but like the other Dream bosses, Soul Tyrant is faster. Also, like, 1 attack is slightly different, but that's it. Also, just don't get cocky during the 2nd phase like I did with Soul Master. Take it slow so that you don't get hit by an orb and die at the end of the fight. Dung Defender is yet another easy boss. He just bounces around and throws balls of crap at you. As gross as it sounds, I really like the Dung Defender as a character, but that's a topic for another day. I'm trying to spice up my commentary here, but I don't think it's really working. Here's a tip. You can knock Dung Defender out of the ground by using Descending Dark when he's burrowing. This causes an automatic stagger so that you have some time to hit him more, since healing doesn't really matter. Like, at all. Oh yeah, I didn't die at all to Dung Defender. Faster Dung Defender, although with some new tricks. Staying close to White Defender is a dangerous thing to do, as he has a new attack where he slams the ground and spikes come up around him. The moment he raises his hand into the air, dash away or you'll be sorry. Also, one of my deaths was because I Great Slashed him as soon as he jumped out of the ground, and because of Great Slash's hitbox, I hit a dung ball that was behind me into me, so don't do that. Also, you can no longer drive him out of the ground with Descending Dark. I died twice to White Defender. Guess what this is? Another boss that I thought I would die to many more times than I actually did. I only died twice. My strategy with the Watcher Knights is just to pogo off of them until they die. If they bounce, dash out of the way, and if they charge, move to the other knight if it's nearby. There is another strategy for the Watchers, a strategy that my friend Aiden uses. You may remember him from the Toho video, and he'll be in a few more upcoming videos. His strategy is to just use Dash Master and Sharp Shadow so that he can just dash frequently and just whittle them down. I personally prefer my Brute Force method, but both are viable. And so we begin the Warrior Dreams. No Eyes' main thing is screwing you over with her new arena, which is covered in thorns. If you miss a jump, thorns. Bad dash, thorns. Poorly timed wall jump, you'll probably get hit by a spirit. The other issue with No Eyes is that she's constantly teleporting around since she doesn't attack you directly. She isn't hard per se, but she isn't that easy either. I died 3 times. I died to Marmu 6 times, which goes to show you how terrible I am at this fight. Most of my deaths to Marmu were her bouncing above my head and hitting me from behind before I could react. She isn't super hard, but you just gotta pay attention to where she's going. Oh yeah, if Marmu picks up too much speed while being hit, that's when you really have to be careful, because she may just speed into you and kill you before you can even have a chance to swing your nail. Here's the first really difficult Warrior Dream. Xero's main issue is the cheap hitboxes on his sword. If you ever touch one of his swords, you're dead. Your strategy should be to hit him from below. Attempting to hit him from the side may result in you running to his sword, and if you can hit him from above, I would be genuinely impressed with you. The swords also have hitboxes on their return back to Xero, so you need to be super careful about that. Xero is the first large death count in a while, with 10 deaths. But that death count isn't comparable to the next boss's amount of deaths it caused me. Here it is. The demon. The horrifying moth demon, Markoth. This thing isn't a warrior dream. He's a warrior nightmare. Markoth is infamously one of the most difficult bosses to fight on Radiant, and it's because of two reasons: the lack of floor and the shield. In Ascended and Radiant, you only have 5 platforms to fight Markoth on. This gives you very limited space to avoid the nails. Combine that with the Radiant difficulty having minuscule room for error, and you have a boss who is incredibly unfun. And that shield, it gets in the way of you and is the primary reason I believe pogoing off Markoth is a bad idea. But here are my tips and tricks. Be patient. Trying to go for Markoth when he's away from the platforms is an awful idea, and more often than not leads to death. Utilize Shade Soul or Vengeful Spirit if you don't have that. Shade Soul is very good when Markoth starts his shield spin attack, and it may even hit him twice. And finally, keep your distance. I highly recommend Longnail or Mark of Pride when fighting Markoth, as it makes it less likely that you'll hit his shield. You want to know how many deaths I had on Markoth? 151. That is 1 death per Generation 1 Pokemon. Actually, you know what? Make that 152. 151 in-game deaths, and then 1 death for me on the inside. Now for something easier. You wanna know how you beat Galien? Jump and strike. That is the strategy. Abyss Shriek also works, I guess, but I think the regular jump and strike while moving is less dangerous. There isn't really much else to say. I died 3 times to Galien. Gorb is a very simple and easy boss. You just need to weave around his needles and you'll be fine. The only major thing in your way is the lack of a solid floor, with there only being 3 platforms, but even then, it's still not that hard. Gorb is predictable and gives you a second to react to his needles. Just don't get reckless. You gotta be patient. I didn't die at all to Gorb. Ironically enough, Gorb didn't really ascend. Elder Hu is another easy warrior dream. Like Gorb, he gives you a moment to react, and his 2 attacks can be shadow dashed through with no danger, as long as you time it right. Like Galien, jumping and striking is the way to go. I also didn't die at all to Elder Hu. Oro and Motto should not have been the boss of the first Pantheon. They're fairly difficult, and I died 6 times trying to conquer them. The main thing that's super difficult about them is that they don't always sync up their attacks, but I guess that's kind of their gimmick, so it's still annoying though. You could try to avoid one attack, but then you might just dash right into another. Great Slash is incredibly useful for this fight, since it takes these 2 down much quicker. Dash Slash also works, but I don't recommend Cyclone Slash, since it leaves you as a sitting duck, just waiting to get spanked by the brothers. Pogoing off of these 2 is a bad idea, as they may jump and hit you. And that's really all I have to say about these 2. The Mario brothers killed me 6 times. Sheo is easier than Luigi and Mario. You have 1 less enemy to worry about, so that's nice. The strategy for Sheo is paying attention to the color of his paintbrush, or you could just watch his attacks since he's very obvious about which ones he's going to use. Also, Sheo actually staggers unlike Oro and Motto, so you can take a break for a second every few hits. Just stay out of the way of Great Slash, or you will be dead. 5 deaths to Sheo. Sly is a pretty difficult fight. He's fast and has a massive range, but you know what the solution to that is? Nail arts. Despite Sly being the master of every nail art, using his own weapons against him proves to be very helpful. I highly recommend you equip Nail Master's Glory for this fight. Dash Slash is very useful, as you can dash near Sly and hit him and then immediately dash away. Great Slash also works wonders. As usual, there isn't that much use for poor Cyclone Slash, as it just leaves you as a sitting duck. The second phase is where Sly gets very difficult. He speeds up significantly, and if you get cornered here, you're dead. But I'll give you my greatest piece of advice for this fight. Stay near the middle. When Sly attacks, just try to get back near the middle of the arena. This greatly decreases your chances of being cornered. I know I'm making it sound like I didn't have much trouble with Sly, but I died 14 times, so I think I'm just being overconfident about him. I don't mean to be too full of myself, but Pure Vessel isn't hard, at least when you know all of its attacks. I understand that for newer players, PV is very difficult. It's fast and its attacks do 2 masks of damage normally, but that doesn't matter since we're on Radiant. PV's telegraphs are actually very, very, very obvious. They're just fast, like a lot of other harder bosses. The attack that usually gets me is the Void Tendril attack, normally just because I don't expect it, and I get a little frazzled since it only uses that attack once it loses 75% of its health. The fact that I know all this stuff just shows how lonely I am. Depressing realization aside, here are some tips. Do not attempt to hit PV through the Spikes attack. You could just hit yourself back into a spike and die. When it uses the Daggers attack, just Shadow Dash through them. That makes avoiding them much less stressful, and just be sure to time it right. And that's really it. PV only killed me twice. I've already done a video on Troop Master Grimm and Nightmare King Grimm, so I won't spend too much time on them, but just know that NKG is my favorite boss in the game. But we're on regular Grimm, so here's my stuff on him. Quick reminder, don't do this. That kills you. Like PV, Grimm telegraphs his attacks and isn't really that fast. He's pretty simple. I only died twice. I really don't have much to say on Nightmare King that I haven't said before. He's just Grimm but faster and with some changes to his attacks. It's an intense fight, but once you get the hang of it, it really isn't that hard. I didn't die at all to NKG. He really isn't that bad, and I will stand by that opinion. So now we've gone through 43 freaking bosses, but there is one more. The final frontier, and the most horrific and painful thing I've ever had to face, perhaps in any video game ever. This boss. This horrible boss. This is the least amount of fun I've ever had in a video game. While regular Radiance is honestly a pretty fun boss and gives you time to react to some things, Absolute Radiance says, screw your feelings, and blasts you with a beam of light. Absolute Radiance is fast. Too fast for reaction sometimes. She can also stack multiple attacks on top of each other because of how fast she is, leading to cheap deaths. She is also one of the longest fights in the game, having like 6 phases. I cannot stress enough the importance of Shadow Dash during this fight. It's not only required to get through one of her attacks, but you can just straight up destroy her light orbs with a well-timed Shadow Dash. In Phase 4, where you are in the area with all the other platforms, Abyss Shriek is so incredibly helpful, and I highly recommend Shaman Stone for this fight. It deals so much damage to Abzerad and pushes her into the next phase quickly. Grimchild is another charm I highly recommend, since he can do damage to Abzerad if you're out of range. Phase 5, the Ascent as I call it, is the second most stressful phase of the fight, the most stressful being Phase 6. Take Phase 5 slow. As far as I know, you aren't on a time limit to climb, so take your time and just avoid the light beams. Final phase, I have no other advice for other than to be careful. Keep in mind that the orbs can be destroyed with Shadow Dash, and just don't poorly time dashes and jumps. This stress-inducing fight took me 6 hours in my original run of all Radiant bosses 2 years ago. This time it only took about 3.5 hours, but in both times I fought Absolute Radiance on Radiant, they were split up into several sections, but that is still absurd. I know I just gave advice for this fight, but I cannot recommend you do this, whether it be just fighting Absolute Radiance on Radiant, or fighting every Hollow Knight boss on Radiant. Markoth and Absolute Radiance take a massive toll on your sanity. Hold on, wait, I forgot my death counter for Abzerad. 214. Yeah, I'm not really going to say anything about that. I'm done. Well, I did it. And I now have a crippling fear of moths, the sun, jellyfish, and myself. I'm going to go cry in a closet now. I'll see you on the next stupid thing that I do. Ah!